In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family, and welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King, and tonight we're leaning into the heartbeat of community, the places where culture, identity, and belonging meet. In every generation, there are individuals who don't just show up for their community, they build community. They create spaces where people feel seen, valued, and celebrated. They remind us that connection is not accidental, it is intentional, work rooted in love, courage, and authenticity. Tonight's guest embodies that spirit. He is a dynamic advocate, a cultural connector, and a voice for inclusive engagement across the state of Pennsylvania and beyond. Whether he's uplifting LGBTQIA plus communities, shaping Black Pride programming, supporting workplace culture initiatives, or amplifying the artistry and legacy of the ballroom scene, he brings a people-first approach that transforms every room he enters. And at the center of his journey are three giants of Black history: August Wilson, James Baldwin, and Elin Harris, storytellers who taught us that identity is not a burden, but a birthright, and that our narratives deserve to be told with honesty and dignity. Tonight, we welcome a man who lives that truth every day. Family, help me honor and celebrate Terrance McGeorge.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm really good. I was just posting this on my Facebook so people could watch it. How you doing today?
I am doing just excellent.
Yeah, this is such an amazing opportunity and pleasure for you to decide that you want me to do this. And so just listening to how awesome you were with all of that nice stuff you said, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, is there anything you like to say to the audience before we get started?
I would like to say that June is a very special month. As somebody who is a part of the queer community as well as a part of the Black community, I was just having a conversation with my friends earlier that, I would love to get to a place where our communities don't have to decide if we're Black or if we're gay, and our intersectionalities would be respected in both communities, right? That's a big theme, I think, for this month, for Black queer people, just in general, of what that looks like for us and how, we fit into the landscape of culture.
So, what I'd like to do, first of all, I want to thank each and every individual that's tuning in at this point, and I want to thank you all for your continual support. And I'll say to you all, please enjoy the show as we go along. Terrance, what I like to start with is, like I do with every show, is I like to start where I like to let people get to know who you were before you came to be this great person that you are today. So if you can take us back, what was your childhood like, and how did it shape the person you are today?
Oh, that's a really good question. My childhood was I would say eventful. My mother's side of the family was very religious. My father's side of the family wasn't, but my dad, I'll put it to you like this. My dad's side of the family had some influence, affluence, I should say. Lived in a decent, very nice neighborhood in the city of Pittsburgh. It was called Penn Hills back in the day. That's where most Black affluent people lived. And my mom's side of the family lived in the projects. So I had the duality of growing up with some privilege and then also low income, food stamps, that sort of thing. I also was a child that was in the system, CYF. And my growing up, my mother had some mental health issues. And so I'm not a stranger to going to what are those mental institutions, visiting her there, different things like that. I think what shaped me as the person that I am today is knowing that there's not always a place for you, and sometimes you have to build that. And so I learned at a very early age that I was very outspoken. I always wanted things to be equal, right? I always wanted things to be well, you said it should be like this, and why isn't it like that? I was one of those type of kids. I really was. And not because I wanted to be sassy or rude or disrespectful, but I was trying to find an understanding of what the world looked like. And from what people would tell me, that's not always necessarily how the adults in my life showed up or just situations were for me. It wasn't until I became a teenager that I realized that the world isn't just black and white, right? There's some nuance there, some gray areas, and that you brought up one of my heroes, Elan Harris. I was in high school when I discovered his books and saw a world outside of the world that I was in, that you could be Black and gay and be a professional. And even though it was just a book, it was something that really built something in me and pushed me to find people that were like me and to also hold myself to a standard that I can do whatever I want to do if I work hard.
So when did you first realize you had a passion for community and connection?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. So when I was 16, maybe 17, yeah, I think going on 16, going on 17, I came out to my mom. I came out to my parents. I have the unique opportunity of my father being gay as well. But I grew up in the 90s, so it wasn't great that he was, right? So like even his side of the family as well as my mom's side of the family, they weren't happy about it, right? And then here I come being who I am. And so I came out and my mom, she cried and basically said, "Oh my God, you're going to die HIV." That was, just what she thought. And so obviously that made me not want to date or, be involved romantically with anybody. And so I started going to the Gay and Lesbian Community Center. And I met someone, her name was Lindsay Sickler. She's still a community advocate, a white older lady till this day. And she introduced me to safe sex prevention. And so I would go to different clubs, colleges, high schools even, and do safe sex prevention. And so that was the start of my community advocacy and building that, because at the time, this is the early 2000s, like 2003, 2004 is when I started. The HIV rate in the Black community was super high. And a lot of my friends were getting it and they were passing, or, they were really sick and they didn't have anybody to talk to. And so that's how I built community, right? I wanted to empower my community. I wanted to advocate for them. And I saw the effects it was taking for the people that were in my community, right? So like some of my friends would be here today and then they would get sick and then they weren't here anymore. Or some of them, when they came out, they were homeless. Now we have to remember this is 20 something years ago. And so now I'm old enough to be able to see the benefit of people accepting their children and their brothers and sisters and their parents and stuff like that. But during that time, it was very common for um, people to be kicked out of their homes. Actually, one of my best friends and I both, well, a couple of my best friends, we suffer homelessness, and we were able to find community in that way and protect each other and do whatever it took for us to be okay.
Wow. So, who were the early influences in your life who encouraged your voice and identity?
So I did want to shout out Lindsay Sickler. She was one of them. And then there was this man that I met through Lindsay called Mackie Freeman. And we created a nonprofit together, but it was years of us working together and me recruiting my friends and bringing them in to do safe sex prevention. And after a few years, we were actually able to create an intervention. It took years, but we made it work. Probably about 10 years we worked hand in hand. And also just me being a loudmouth, being annoying. Because one of the biggest things that happened when I was a youth was the city of Pittsburgh didn't have and I don't know if this is like this in all cities, but LGBT people didn't include Black people, if that makes sense. A lot of the services in the city were, especially HIV prevention services at that time, they were geared towards white gay men. Even though our communities were the ones who were facing the most challenge, the dollars weren't going there, the services weren't there, and even for Black women too. So it was partly me and my friends really, really advocating, showing up to different meetings, explaining to the health department the needs that we had here in the city of Pittsburgh, that really started to create change. So yeah, that was how it went. And I did have people around me that nurtured my voice. They allowed me to I want to take off this background really quickly because it's just messing me up. Like I don't know if it's messing up the audience, but it's killing me. Sorry about this. None. Okay, back. Okay. Let's see how that looks now. Perfect. Okay. Okay, perfect. Oh my God, yes, so much better.
So, what experience taught you the importance of authenticity?
Ooh, that's such a good one. There's so many of them. One of the biggest things for me about authenticity is I had someone come to me. I was probably 18, 19 years old. And they were younger. They were about 14 or 15. And they said, I know you. And I looked at them and said, how do you know me? Right? Because I was at the GLCC, and that was a place that I really used to frequent a lot. Every Friday night I would go with my friends, and then this youth came up to me and said that I know you. And I said, oh, you do? I mean, at the time I was a part of a performing arts group. I love the arts. I've written several plays and done certain things in the arts and have been doing it for years. But at that time I was still new to it or whatever. And they said, oh, I saw you perform at my high school, which was a high school called Kappa. It was a performing arts school that we have here in the city of Pittsburgh downtown. And they said, I saw your performance, and I just thought, I wrote a poem just about my life and what it looked like at that time, right? Like I really wanted to be in a relationship. I hadn't really dated that much anyway. So that was the crux of the poem. And he came to me and said, hey, I thought your poem was really cool. And really, well, he didn't say cool. He said really dope. I'll never forget. And I laughed. And I said, well, why did he say that? He said, I found myself in your words. Like that's exactly how I feel too. I feel alienated. I feel by myself. I feel like nobody understands me. And I told him, be yourself at all times. And it made me think about the fact that like when you are truly authentic in yourself, especially with the arts, it connects with people right away because they can feel themselves in that, right? Everybody has felt like they have been in positions or places where they didn't belong, or they didn't fit in, or they did whatever. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from a queer person or a straight person, a bisexual person, a trans person. We all have been othered and experienced that. And so that right there for me was like, okay, keep going, be yourself.
So, how did your personal journey intersect with your professional calling?
Ooh, you got some good questions, Mr. King. So I would say that, so to be fair, I didn't realize that my safe sex prevention work and my advocacy would actually be a job. I didn't think that there was like a career or money that would come out of that. They would give you little stipends and stuff like that. And then what ended up happening and I talked about this before, I had been doing this group called Young Adult Roundtables for about 10 years. And I was bringing my friends all the time to these meetings, and we were meeting all the time. Every like 2 or 3 months, we would go away for a week in Harrisburg, talk to the health department, talk about drug use, alcohol use, sexual stuff, like sexual behaviors. We would just talk about what's like actually happening. We talked about people getting pumped. At the time, some of my friends were getting silicone injections into their bodies because they were trans. And so all of these different things like basically came together. And there was a $10 million grant from the CDC that wanted to do interventions for marginalized communities. And I think that was in 2010, 2011. And we wrote one, we talked about it, me and Mackie Freeman and some other people from the Pittsburgh, I forget what it's called, Pittman study. The Pittman study was around since 1983. It was actually one of the earliest organizations in the country that dealt with HIV and AIDS and men who have sex with men and all of that. And so they found this grant, and they came to me and said, Terry, what do you think we could do to get this money? We think you would be best to talk about what's happening in your communities right now. You're still young, you're still a part of it. And at the time I was like 26, 27. So I was pretty young, but in my mind, I had been doing this for so long, I was kind of old, if that made sense. Well, no, I'm in my head. Now I wish I could go back to those days because, whatever. But so what ended up happening is we got the grant, and only 10 there were thousands of people who applied, and it was CDC federal grant for the whole country. And so we were one of the 10 people who got funded. And that's kind of sort of how my career took off, because at that time, before we had gotten that money, I was working in mental health. I was working in different pockets of health and public health, but not in the HIV realm. That was more so something that I volunteered to do. And then when we got that grant, I was able to start my career doing that.
Wow. So what challenges did you face growing up, and how did you overcome them?
Whew. Okay, so many. A couple of things. One of the challenges is like I always said, I've always been a loudmouth. Always been very abrasive to people. Not abrasive, I shouldn't say, but more so just I'm a straight shooter. I tell you how I feel about what it is, the situation, whatever it is. And I don't care how you feel about it, especially if that's how I see it. And so a lot of challenges for me growing up was I was just always very too honest, right? Like I was the person that always like brought stuff that made me uncomfortable and probably everybody else in the room uncomfortable. I always brought it to the forefront. So that was a challenge for me. And how I overcame that is I never did. I'm still dealing with it now. I mean, I just have to be honest. But other challenges were being light-skinned, right? So my father is darker skinned and my mom's brown skinned. And so growing up, my mom dated a lot of Caucasian men. My mom is an equal opportunist. She'll date anybody in that sense. Like that's just how she was. And so growing up in the projects and where I was from, that was a big thing. Like some of her boyfriends were white and people be like, oh, that's your real dad, or the mailman was your dad. Because again, I'm super light compared to most of my family. So that was always a big struggle. And also, and I don't want to make a broad statement, but this is just my experience, is that I feel like when you are lighter skinned, you have to fight a little more. You have to prove yourself, right? That you're not soft and that you're not scared. And I'm not, and never have been. And so, you know, for me growing up, I was always fighting, always in that kind of sort of thing, just because I wanted to fight for my respect and prove that I wasn't afraid. The other challenge was obviously coming out and being gay. That was a hard theme in my life because my dad was also homosexual. And so I saw how the family talked about him, and I felt very weird about it. And I internalized a lot of homophobia. And it wasn't, I always knew I wasn't wrong for how I felt, but that still didn't change the way people treated you or how people saw you, right? And so it took me years to be able to be comfortable in my own skin. But how I overcame that was I just kept going. And then the last challenge that I had growing up was my mom, like I told you, growing up when I was living with her, we lived in the projects for a majority of my childhood. But when I became close to a teenager, we moved to a suburban area in the city of Pittsburgh called Baldwin. And Baldwin is a very affluent area in our city. I went to school with like hundreds of white kids. Mind you, when I was in middle school, I never met any white kids. Like I didn't go to school with them. My school was all Black. And then she switched us over to suburbia. And that was a huge challenge and reset for me because I didn't know how to relate to them, right? And they definitely didn't know how to relate to me. And so it was rough. That's all I can say. It was definitely a challenge. And how I overcame that was I just realized there was nothing I could do about it. And I had to get through it. Because the big thing for me in all of that, I should say, to wrap up in a blanket is that, and I realized this at a very young age, probably about 13, 14, is that tough times don't last all the time, right? So like anything that's a challenge for you can be a challenge for you right now. But eventually, you'll be able to move forward and you'll be okay. And that was just an arching theme, right? So like a lot of the times where people were judging me for coming out and being gay, I was able to be like, well, in Elance Harris's books, you know, there's a lawyer and he's living in New York City in a loft and he got a boo and he's thriving and professionally. And so I was able to take my mind out of what I was dealing with right there and then and realize that in the future, that I would be successful. I would be able to live authentically in my life because I saw people like James Baldwin and researched them. I saw people like August Wilson and I researched them and they were able to be successful and be their authentic self.
So, let me just do a follow-up because, you said quite a few interesting things there in those challenges. So, like, the first thing is I understand in our community, I understand how colorism is. And I know that for a young man and a young child, that could be very, very difficult. What were some of the things that you were actually dealing with internally when you thought about the colorism and how people were approaching you about being so light?
So no, that's so funny. I'm glad that I love the fact that you asked that question because one of the things that I do know about my color is that, and I have to say this before I say anything else, is that I know that I benefit from white privilege. I'm not going to sit on this interview with you and not say that a lot of the opportunities that I have gotten is because I'm lighter skinned and I have green eyes. That is just a fact. And I'm not saying that I'm the most handsome man, but I'm easy on the eyes, right? And so that's helped me in my career, right? And a lot of times, to be quite frank, my race is ambiguous. So let me take my glasses off for people to see. Is that I could be Puerto Rican, right? I could, from just what people see visually, and not saying that that's what I am. I could be part of the Latino community. I can be a part of the Arab community. I could be a part of the Black community. I could be mixed, right, with anything. So I'll give you an example. My sister has lived in Brooklyn for years. And one year I went to go visit her and I went to the Puerto Rican Day Parade. And I was like 15 or 16 at the time. And I saw a Dominican person for the first time. We don't have Dominicans in Pittsburgh, or at least at that point, I didn't know what that was. Let's just say that. And I went up to him and started talking to him like, oh my God, you're so handsome. I'd never seen a Black man with he had like bluish, grayish eyes curly hair, but he was dark skinned, and I had never seen that. And I said, "Oh my God, for a black man, I never seen, you know." And I'm explaining that to him, and he got mad at me and was like, "I'm not black, I'm Dominican." And I look at my sister, and I'm like, "What is that? Like, what is he talking about?" You know, I mean, because I was just uneducated into what that was, right? And so for me, growing up, race has always been a universal theme in my life, right? Because like I said again, my race has always been very ambiguous. And so there are times where white people specifically, let's say on the job, thought that I was mixed. And so they would have conversations with me like, "You're not like the other ones, right?" No, listen. They will have conversations with you where I'm looking at them like, "I'm black. Like, do they not know?" Like, how offensive that is. But because they think that I'm mixed, that they basically will talk bad about the black community. Or other races have said things to me like, "You know how it is with them." And that was, I've had Latino people say stuff like that to me in regards to white people and black people, or both. And me being someone who is black at all times, I'm looking at them like, what do I say in this moment? How do I educate them? And a lot of times as I've gotten older, I just don't even, I don't, because I feel like I can't put energy into correcting you, to teaching you, because if you wanted that, that wouldn't have been what you would have said to me in the first place, right? If you were serious about seeking knowledge and about affirming a subset of a community, you wouldn't even have said those negative or racist or colorist things. And I would say how color has impacted my life, like I said, is that I have been given many opportunities. I will say that. The downside of it is that a lot of times you're made to pick a side. Again, my race has been ambiguous. And so there have been things on jobs or things in my personal life where people are like, "Well, you need to pick." And I don't think it's fair, right? Because I don't even have any other, like, as far as I know, I'm just all black. So I don't have any other subsets that I'm representing. I'm just representing a black man, right? And so sometimes it's really hard because I've had black men specifically, and women, in workplace environments, or even in my personal life, where they say I've only been successful because of the color of my skin. And so it's more so you're discrediting me, right? Just because I'm light skinned. And that's the part that we don't talk about in the black community. And I'm not saying, again, that light-skinned black people don't benefit from the colorism. But what I will say is that you would think that you would get the most love and embrace from your community, instead of them looking at me as a barrier or somebody who doesn't get it. I would think that you would look at me as an ally. And I can't always say that in the black community that I felt affirmed. I wouldn't be authentic if I said that. I haven't.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that goes for family and friends, because my sister is darker skinned and she's older than me. And I do remember being a kid and us going to the stores with my mom, and how, people would come up to my mom and say, he's so handsome, his eyes are so pretty, and them not saying anything about my sister. And how she took that, right, and internalized it, that just without going too deep, she took that personal, like it was a personal attack on her, when it wasn't. I didn't know, right? I was a kid. I was just, "Oh, that's nice. This lady gave me a lollipop," or, "Oh, they're being very nice to me." I just thought that that's just how the world was. But then as I grew up and started to see that we were definitely treated different.
So as you mentioned that in the professional environment, in the LGBTQ community, have you experienced those same things?
Yes. But to be fair, I haven't. Okay. I'll say this. One of the things that is unfortunate, right? When people think you're light-skinned or you look like what people look at as attractive, they assume that you're dating people and you have all this stuff happening behind the scenes, like you got all these men after you and stuff like that, and my phone would be dry as sandpaper. Like nobody would be trying to talk to me because everybody thought I was with somebody, or I thought I was too good, and so a lot of that happened to me, especially in my younger years, where I didn't really get a lot of attention, right? I didn't, because I was too light for the white boys. And I wasn't masculine enough, I guess, or attractive enough for the black ones. And so that did leave me in a space where I just had to figure it out. In the gay community, I will say this: I have been given more opportunities as well because of the color of my skin. I mean, I think, unfortunately, that a light-skinned black man makes white people less uncomfortable. They'll allow you in the room. If do you get to stay is a different story, right? So that goes into, like I said, about being confrontational and about stating my opinion. A lot of times I find myself having to call a lot of white men out about their racism, right? About how they're treating us as a whole in the community. And what happens is that you become a problem. And like I said, in the LGBT community, it wasn't until I became probably in my late 20s that I even felt attractive. Or when I started to really get attention, right? So like grew my beard out, just changed a little bit, did some tweaks here and there, right? And then I started to get more attention. But the other part is that a lot of people would say, I thought you were so stuck up. I thought you were this. I thought you were that. And it was only because of my color that they would have these assumptions. And I had to ask them, like, well, now that you know me, what do you think? And they'd be like, oh, you're one of the most down-to-earth people I ever met in my life. I'm like, yeah. So if that applies to me, imagine how many other people you judged before you had the opportunity to get to know them. Because a lot of us we have our own insecurities, whether you're white, black, whatever. You're going to have those feelings of maybe you're not good enough. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And so I think for me, it was just exploring the fact that I had to figure out who I was. And that's the other part. I think confidence is one of the most universal, sexiest, awesome things because it brings people to you. And that's when I started to be a lot more confident in myself, when I was able to just embrace me. For me, is when I started to see a lot more attention from myself, and more opportunities, for sure.
Ooh, well, we're gonna have to talk about that after the show, because I think that's a very important topic, because you're still at the end of the 20th century, and you're experiencing some things that was really, really horrific in that particular situation back in the 19th century. And so that in itself leaves a lot of investigative work. So we'll have to talk about that after the show, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
So what does home mean to you right now?
Ooh. Home to me means safety. Just safety. I have been through a lot. I have to be 100% honest and transparent. Growing up, like I said, we didn't have much. There were times where I was homeless. There were times where, like I remember one time the sheriff woke me up, like to kick me out. My mom was at home. It was just me. I was like 10. And I sat outside, because they were kicking me out. So it's those type of experiences where my house wasn't always the most stable. And so as an adult, I look for stability and safety. So if I feel safe, that's home for me.
Let's move over and talk a little bit about you as CEO and leadership and Project Silk.
Okay.
For those who may not know, tell us, what is Project Silk and what inspired its mission?
So Project Silk, unfortunately, I think this year after budget restraints is no longer around, but I talked about this earlier in the conversation. It came out of young adult roundtables with the University of Pittsburgh, and we talked about safe sex and different things like that. And one of the things that we did is we were able to write that grant, right? And we got that 10 million for the city of Pittsburgh. And what the goal for Project Silk was, we created a ballroom intervention. And so one of the biggest things that happened to me when I was a youth is I found ballroom, which is where Black LGBT people come and perform and compete in a competition. Well, Project Silk was very unique because we had a lot of LGBT Black people here who were competing in balls, but the safe sex education wasn't happening, right? We weren't getting that piece. And as I said before, a lot of the agencies here in the city were geared towards white gay men. They did not really do much for us. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some that tried, but it wasn't Black facing. Project Silk was created by me and my best friend, Michael Brookins, and we wanted to empower the community, give people HIV services, people who were homeless, give them a place to take a shower, give them a place to come and eat, give them a place to get clothing, give them a place to come and do a resume, give them a place to come and practice their craft as far as ballroom goes. And so when we did that, it just changed the game. And we immediately had a full house every single day. We immediately were able to get so many people into care for HIV. At the time also with Project Silk, we were instrumental in helping PrEP. And so I don't know if people are familiar with that, but PrEP actually started out of the University of Pittsburgh. And one of the things that we did was bring people to be a part of the clinical trials. I actually was a part of the first part of that. Like I was one of the people in the trial, which helped me, I think, not get HIV. God, thank God for that. But that was the goal, and that's what we did with the program. Yeah.
So, how did you step into the role of CEO?
So, how do I say this? I was the CEO, right? The creator or partner, but it was not like that on paper. And Black people know this firsthand, right? Not to defame any race, but we know that a lot of times a Black person will have an idea, will have all the goods, will have what you need, but a white person will come and take that idea and run with it. And that's what happened. That's what happened to me, right? And so I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what getting a $10 million grant meant for me and for the community, right? I didn't know that I should have been a lot further in my career than what I was. I didn't realize that I should have been on a lot of that paperwork and because we were in medical journals, still are. And I wasn't always on the forefront of that paperwork, even though the idea was truly mine and my friends. And that's something that we have to talk about, right? Is the ownership, right? A lot of times you will have this amazing idea. And for me, I was able to take from the community in the sense of I could just bring my friends to come to do some trials. I could bring my friends to come to a meeting, and they would just do it because I asked them to, right? But those were the same people that were funding the whole project. And so if it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for my friends, there would be no project. And so did we treat it well? No. Did we get the respect that we deserved? Absolutely not. But that's okay. Because the goal for me wasn't about the prestige. It wasn't about the recognition. It was truly about making sure my friends stayed here because some of them were gone. And at the time I was so young, I didn't know how to help them. I had picked up stuff along the way. You have to remember, this is the early 2000s. And so, a lot of my friends were homeless. They slept on me and my dad's couch. Like, we truly had, how do I say this, like a group home at my house. Like, my dad allowed a lot of kids who didn't have much to come and eat, and he didn't have it to give, to take showers, to have a safe place to stay. Not all the time. Sometimes he was like, they gotta find somewhere to go. But majority of the time, he was a big support for the community, for sure. And so that's kind of also where I came from with that as far as community goes.
I want to ask you this question because this is probably going to sound a whole lot more serious than what the question really is, because I want to really get some understanding here, because again, you shed some light on some things that have happened and are still happening. And when you mentioned the ideas and how people steal your ideas, now
it happens
you know,
all the time.
but but from a historical context, that's always happened to people in the Black community. Now, there are a lot of people that are in the LGBTQ community that feel like situations like yours, where you were pretty fortunate to get that grant, they're not allowed to get that grant because it's Black. You're in a Black space, so they don't get that grant. So with that being said, did you not feel any uncomfortability with that? Did you not have any idea that there was going to be something to kind of like slowly but surely move you out? Did you like think about that?
No, because we were. This is what I mean. I was already in the position of being a social worker in the Black community. So my mind, I didn't see it that way. I just saw that they were providing help.
Right.
The problem that came in also, right? And this is what we do in the Black community as well. And this is something that I want to speak to.
Right.
We were building a brand that benefited everybody. It wasn't just about me and my friends. Everybody could come, right? But there were people that were upset that it was me doing it. Right? Because they didn't like me. Again, who does he think he is? He thinks he's better than everybody, blah, blah, blah. And that's really, I mean, I've had when the project first came out, I'll never forget. We had a ball. There's always disagreements at balls. Sometimes there's fights. Sometimes there's violence. That's a part of the community, whatever. Mm-hmm. They called my boss trying to get me fired, not knowing that I was a part of writing the grant. So I had people in the community that I'm helping trying to sabotage me, trying to get me out of my spot. And it worked in the end, but we'll talk about that at another time. But there was a time where me and my friend Miguel, we would get off of work because we were open till 10, 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. We would get off of work and there would be people in the community. And I hate to make it seem like I'm this or he's that, but there were people that were just truly jealous. We would get off of work. Sometimes we would have to fight them. Like I'm leaving my job and walking over to the bar because the bar was like a block or two up the street. But we would have to fist fight them. For whatever reason, somebody said that we said something. And this is the thing that always made me sad about that is that I hate violence, but I can't stand a bully. So if I see you bullying a friend of mine or a loved one of mine, I don't care. I'll go to hell and high water for you. And so a lot of times people were just mad that it was us, because one of the biggest things about me that I should have said earlier is that I've always been looked at or viewed as an underdog. People always count Terry out. Like I always get counted out. And what is always the funniest thing is that when they find me doing something on the back end and it's actually successful, they try to sabotage it. They're like, I can't believe he did it again. I can't believe they gave him that opportunity. And what people don't realize is that nobody ever handed me, excuse my language, shit. I have worked very hard for anything I've ever had. Nobody ever gave it to me. Now, again, my decent looks and my light skin may have helped me get into the door, but that don't keep you there. Mm-hmm. And that's what people never remember, right? So like they would hate, they would talk about me, and then I would still thrive. Even to this day, to be completely honest with you, Mr. King, I get that all the time. But the thing about me is that I know that I'm one of God's anointed children. And the reason why I know that I'm one of his children is because doors continue to anytime I feel as though like I can't do it anymore or I'm struggling, another door opens up for me to do something else. Even this interview just opened up out of nowhere, which I'm so grateful for you to do this with me. But truly, I never chase an opportunity. Opportunities, God puts them in my path. And so when you're walking, and this is just how I look at life, when you're walking in your purpose and you're walking with God and you're putting him first, that's all you need to do. Everything else takes care of itself.
So, what community needs did Project Silk address most directly?
Ooh, HIV prevention, homelessness, education, job placement, because this was the other part. We started to create jobs for the LGBT community, right? Because and a lot of the people that we hired, they didn't have degrees. Some of them didn't have GEDs, high school diplomas, and they were able to come in and work at Project Silk and teach them certain things like creating programming, basically pushing them in that public health realm. And a lot of the people that started at Project Silk today are some of the most impactful in the city of Pittsburgh. From activism to HIV prevention work to their ballroom career, Project Silk was instrumental in a lot of that for the city of Pittsburgh.
So, how do you ensure your programs remain culturally responsive?
Youth. That's the only way you can keep a program alive and keep a program well, is by bringing in the 15, the 16, the 17, the 18-year-olds, because those are the people that, because this is how I seen it, right? As someone, I'm 39 now. And so I remember me and my friends learning, right? And not becoming a part of the epidemic of HIV. And what that looked like for the trajectory of our lives. Some of us are still HIV negative because we were able to be in that space. But one of the things that was really instrumental for Project Silk was people were able to get the services that they needed without feeling judged. And they were able to get the services that they needed from people that looked like them, that understood the community that they were a part of, because we were a part of it. So that made people feel very comfortable, very safe, and they were able to utilize those services. And I don't know if people don't realize how impactful youth engagement can be for your programs and for your programming, you're doing yourself a disservice, because those are the ones that are going to bring their group of friends to keep those numbers going that you need, right? Those are the people that we really need to be educating, because let's just say this, between 17 and 25, everybody thinks they knows everything. You think you know everything, right? You've done it. You're the best at it. Nobody could tell you nothing. By 25, you hit that wall. By 25, you realize another thing, right or wrong, right? You start to realize that this is what the world really is. It ain't what I thought it was. This is what it is. And that's how you keep the program alive, is by understanding you don't know nothing and you need to learn those skills. And if you get them when they're young, by the time they're 25, they already had that conversation in their head and they're just moving forward with life. You know, they're just rolling with the punches. But if you don't get them while they're young, two things happen, or at least that I've seen. Either A, they become disillusioned. They become uncaring. They lack empathy because they feel like no one cared about them. So why should I care about you? Or they turn to drugs, turn to prostitution, turn to those different things. And so it's really important that you nurture those youth, right? And to bring them up. That would be my answer.
Yeah, so as we talk about the youth, can you tell us, what does youth empowerment mean in your organization's context?
That they're the reason why we're there. We are it. That they are the real reason why we were there, is because we had lost people who were 17, 16, 17, and 18-year-old. And if anybody knows what it was like in that time during the HIV epidemic and crisis, you remember that there wasn't a whole lot you could do about the fact that your friends, because here's the thing. If you have a long-standing disease like HIV, that takes a lot of work to keep up with the medicine, to keep up with the doctor's appointments. And you're 16, 17 years old. You're not going to do that. At that age, I felt invincible too. At that age, I felt like I was never going to have any health problems. I was fine. And no, I wasn't. As far as like I was out there and could have gotten stuff that I couldn't get rid of too. And so I had to start to now, because of what my mom said to me, and I always say this, that was like my origin story for prevention, because she really thought that I was going to pass away. And I thought in my head, don't laugh at me, y'all, but I thought that I was just going to get HIV just because I was gay. I didn't know that I was uneducated. And then she's crying, and I didn't know. I had to go to a couple workshops for them to be like, you have to have sex first for that to even happen, Terry. But that was me learning. I think one of the things that saved me is that I've always been very, very curious. Like I always want to know something. Like I always want to learn something. And so if you give me something that I'm interested in, I research. And I love sharing information with people. I love telling people, oh, this is where you should go to this. You should do. I'm just one of them. And so that helped me for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about a Black Pride ballroom and your cultural influence.
Okay.
Tell us, how did you first get involved with Black Pride?
Oh, wow. So I got involved with Black Pride probably like 2008. And I didn't know her well. Her name is Felicia. I forget her last name, but everybody knows who Felicia is. Shout out to you, D-Rock. And Felicia just like came up to me one day and was like, oh, I love everything that you're doing. We should collaborate. But we never really did. And then years and years passed. I always supported the cookout. I always went. I didn't really do much as far as like any helping. But then 2020 came about and Felicia wasn't on the board anymore. And it was this gay man. He was. And I helped him plan the event, like got him sponsorships. We got Maya down here to perform for us. We did a little ball. We did some stuff. And then the next year, Felicia was just asking me, did I want to be on the board? And I told her no, because I just felt like that was a heavy lift for me. And then she had gotten hurt. Well, not hurt, I shouldn't say. She had a neighbor who was super racist. And we started protesting for her over in that affluent area, Penn Hills, that I told you about. And they didn't like that. And so we were on the news. It was just it's a long story. But essentially, she came this year and was like, I really want you on the board. I know you've been turning me down, but can you really do it for me, please? And of course, I've always helped get them sponsorship, like with my job at the county. So I work for the county during the day doing community engagement. And now, of course, I always make sure that we cut them a check and make sure that we helped in any way we could, getting stages for the cookout that we do here and just different things. I've always been a door that someone that she could lean on when it came to the planning of stuff. I always extended the grace and opportunity to help. I just didn't want a title. I just didn't want to actually have to go to a board meeting once or twice a month, just because of life, But she wore me down. And I said, yeah. And so this will be the first year that I'm actually like on the board and planning stuff. I'm currently planning the ball right now with a friend of mine, and we're excited.
So can you tell us, what does Black Pride represent beyond the celebration?
I think Black Pride to me represents intersectionality. And I said this earlier, and I was talking to a friend about it, about how the duality of a Black gay person, whether they're being trans, whether they're a male, whether they're trans, whether they're bisexual, whether they're lesbian, is very hard for us to be confident in our gayness, right? Like families have now come a long way as far as like not kicking out their kids or not showing them love, but actually celebrating the queerness of us is still not there. And so I think by having events that are for us, by us. Oh, and let me add this part too. White pride isn't, and when I say white pride, I mean the larger prides in all of the country. You don't see a lot of Black voices there. There might be one token Black male. You ain't all three. You ain't getting all three. You're just not, right? In the leadership and the representation. And I think that gives queer people, especially queer people of color, a disservice, because we're gay too, right? Marsha P. Johnson started the revolution, right? And that was a Black trans woman.
Yes.
And we
she did.
And so here's the thing about that, right? Why is it that Black people, we start these movements, we start these awesome programs, awesome movies, just the creativity, the most amazingness, the advocacy that we do, and the erasure of us. And that's, for me, what Black pride provides, is that it doesn't allow us to be erased. Because those white people at those larger events will erase us. That's just the nature of what happens. That they don't care to make room or space for you, and you have to carve out your own. And that's something that I've been very lucky and that I've always been able to do at any job or any opportunity that I've given, is carving out a piece for us. And so that's why it's important.
Wow. I gotta say, I think that last part of your answer, your statement, I think it makes more sense in the resignation, of the exposure and all the things that the Black LGBTQ community does, but nobody knows that they do it. But everybody thinks that, I'm sorry to say it, but when they see the LGBTQ community, it's always the white perspective or the white persona of that. And I think that is more than just a disservice, but I think that when you have programs or when you have things now that are starting to be more of an advocate to showcase and highlight that, I think that that's when people now are starting to take notice, is that this is what we do. That's what they do. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, man. Ooh, okay. I'll say this. I was the first Black person, I should say, in the city of Pittsburgh that sat on the board for gay pride, white pride, big pride here. And I was the first person to do a ball here in the city of Pittsburgh for pride. Pride now in the city of Pittsburgh is ran by a person named Daylin and a person named Dina and Lindsay. And Lindsay I talked about earlier. And they're Black, which is great. What you will find, though, is that when you are that person of color in a space like that, some of your Blackness you have to shed it. You're not allowed. I'm just keeping it real. I'm just trying to be honest.
Yes, sir.
You can't bring your full, authentic Black queer self to these events. And we talk about it all the time about how it is that. Look at who's doing. Yes, it's great that they're in those positions. And I do nothing but support that, because I think that from the hard work of me and some others that don't really get mentioned, because this is the thing about me. Nobody ever puts me in those type of conversations of being a pioneer or being somebody who did it first, even though everybody knows that I did. And after a few drinks, I will remind you. But most of the time, but I'm just keeping it real. But most of the time, people, one of the things that I find so disheartening about just our community, Black and queer, is the erasure of us. I grew up, there's a man in the city called Derek Tynes, and he's a Black queer pastor. And I've known him since I was like 18. And anything that I do, I always reach out to him just because I value him. I value his experience, his life experience. I value what he brings to the table. But I can say that this new generation, they definitely don't value me. They don't give me the same respect that I give him. And that's because they feel as though they don't have to. Because again, as I told you, 18 to 25, you know everything. You've done it all. You are the best at everything. And nobody who's older can tell you a thing.
You say until they hit that wall, right?
Until that wall. I mean, and that's life. You know, that's not a queer, that's not a gay, that's not a straight thing. That is a life thing. And I think it's important. And I think for us, though, especially Black queer people, we hit that wall and we hit it harder than anybody because we got 2 strikes, right? Life is not going to be kind to you with those attachments to your name and into your life. You really, truly have to carve your own path. And sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes life is just going to life, right? Not too long ago, I met a boy who's 22. His first boyfriend gave him HIV. Could he have been on PrEP? Maybe, if he was hanging out with the right people or if he had the knowledge. But that's life hitting you, hitting that wall. You know better. Maybe there was somebody in his life who was telling him he needed to use protection or he needed to get on PrEP. And he decided that, guess what he knew? He knew better. And so that's what I mean by we have to be very, very strategic in how we play the hands that we're dealt. I'm not saying that in life I made all the right choices, but I've always been I'm a Pisces. So we see everything. We feel everything too. And that's a good way to go through life because you're able to assess everything that's going on around you and decide what feels the best for you. Some people say that's the emotional way of thinking, but it's kept me safe. And it's kept me successful.
So, how has the ballroom community influenced your leadership?
The ballroom scene for me, I'll never forget. I was 18, 17, I was 17. And I had one of my first Black gay friends. She passed away. Her name was Elia Johnson. And we met each other at the GLCC and we were super close. Elia would stay the night at my house every single weekend. We would go everywhere together. We would hang out. And she was dating somebody that said, hey, come to this event. It's Black and gay. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm getting cute. Got my little braids done at the time. I had long hair, So I'm like, okay. We get there and I see these people doing all this awesome stuff that I've never seen before in my life. So I was hooked from there. And then I started to actually meet the people, right? So like the people who, like the older people, the people who were in charge. And I have to be fair and honest about that. Is that I didn't like them. And a lot of them didn't like me. And the reason is because I didn't need a place to stay. I didn't need your money. My dad, by that point, was looking out for me and my friends. So I had a strong support system at home. A lot of other people didn't, which meant they could be taken advantage of, which means you could get them to do things for you that I just was looking at you like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Like, are you kidding me? No. And so I was able to, like I said, I've always been a person who would advocate for myself and my friends. And so ballroom kind of put me in the vein of, I need to protect the people who are younger than me so they don't get taken advantage of. And one of the things that I had saw in that community is that a lot of youth were being taken advantage of. A lot of youth were getting HIV, maybe due to things of their own. But at the same time, they weren't being protected. A lot of youth were getting introduced to prostitution. A lot of youth were getting introduced to drugs. And for me, I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I've lived a life. Let's just say that I'm 39 years old. But I didn't feel like, even if that was your story, that you should be teaching that to other people. And so I was very much an advocate. It built my leadership up because I was always talking about that's not right. That's not what you need to be doing. You need to be doing this and da-da-da. And so I didn't know that I was a leader until people started treating me like, oh, here he comes again on his soapbox. And, he's, I mean, that's literally how people started. I promise you, Mr. King, that is how people started talking to me like, here you go. You don't know everything, Terrance. You don't. Yes, I don't know everything, but I know that leadership for me.
So, what do people often misunderstand about the ballroom culture?
That it's a place. One big one is that it's going to be like it is on Pose. The 80s are gone, baby. Ballroom is not about you being homeless and you coming to stay with somebody. Now, there is pockets of that. And there are times where the older people in the house or the parents or the leadership in the house, they guide their kids to apply for an apartment, go get jobs, that sort of thing. That does happen. But ballroom is really, truly, nowadays, a business. It is, we want you in our house because you can win us a trophy or you can win some money. Not because we like you and you're this great person. Now, that might be for some, but for most, it's about what you could do for the house versus what the house can do for you. The other misconception is that you're going to be embraced. That's not how that goes. You have to put forth effort. You have to show people what your talents are for people to take you serious.
So how do you honor the legacy of ballroom pioneers in your work?
Oh, great question. Any house that I'm a part of, I'm currently a 007. I don't have a house affiliation. But any house that I'm a part of, I reach out to the older ones. I listen to their stories. I found out what they were good at, what they used to win. I think for me, it's about opening up that door from the past and bringing it to the present. Because one of the things that I've done in the city of Pittsburgh is always trying to bridge the gap of the two generations, right? My generation is 2005, 2006. But even right now, I'm working with a generation, people who are like of the now generation, right? That just started walking or just a part of it. And so I always try to bring the old and the new. And I shouldn't say old. I should always, the more seasoned with the newer generation, because I will say this. Older people always think they know what younger people need to do or whatever that goes, right? Nobody wants to be preached to. Nobody wants to be told what to do, right? But the younger generation also a lot of times are reckless. They live their life like nothing's going to ever happen to them. And so it's about that duality of understanding that nobody wants to hear about how it was in 1987 and know that, hey, those people in 1987 are the reason why you're able to do what you're able to do now. So it's making sure that you just honor both.
What role does art play in the community healing?
Okay, that's a great question. So I did a play called Black Portrait 2024. And one of the biggest reasons why I did the play is because, and please don't cancel me, audience, when I say this, but at the time that I did the play, I felt as though no one was talking about the Black man, the Black queer man, the Black trans man, just the Black straight man. Like nobody was talking about it, especially, but for me, the onus came from being a Black queer man and not seeing me. Every conversation was about Black and trans. And I am here for my sisters and my brothers. I want us all to get what we deserve. But you can't erase me. Like it can't be, we have to support this one and not support this one. And some of the advocates that I've come across said, well, if we support Black trans women, we're supporting everybody because they're the most vulnerable and the most impacted. And so if you help them, you're helping everybody. But what they don't realize is that that's not how that goes. That's kind of like the Reagan administration when they said with the trickle down theory, it was going to trickle down. No, it don't trickle down. You have to leave space and room for everybody to get their shine. And so when I created the play, it was about telling stories of Black men. And so we had Derek Tynes, who I said before, he was a pastor. And one of the stories that he did is he talked about, so how the play went was create a poem or a letter or talking to your old self or talking to the audience. And then it was, the play piece was showing something that happened in your life that was impactful. And so mine was doing a play about being Black and queer and not feeling loved. But the other part was my story of sexual abuse that happened when I was a youth. And the story basically goes, I had blocked off when I was a youth that I was assaulted by a family member that lived with me and my family at the time. And I blocked it out. And I was working in a mental health job at the time, and I was working with a client. She was a constant observation, which means you can't take your eyes off of them because they're a suicide watch. And she just started talking to me. She said, "You have very kind eyes." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you." And then she just goes into her life story about how her mom sold her to a pimp when she was 7, and she had been doing sex work from 7 until she became an adult. And when she started talking about her experiences with some of the work she was doing, I started to flash back into the stuff that happened to me. I literally have blocked it out. That's a real thing when people say you block stuff out and you don't remember until somebody can really reignite that memory. So when she was talking, all these memories started fleshing in. Now, the cousin who had did it, this was Thanksgiving Eve. I invited my cousin, the one who did that stuff to me, to my dinner, my Thanksgiving dinner with my partner and my mom and her husband. And I told my mom, when I got on break, I called my mom and I said, "Hey, I don't think Tonette should come, blah, blah, blah." And then I just started, it was like word vomit. It just all started coming out. She did this happened, da, 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 da. So my mom said, "I don't believe you. And why are you making this up?" And da, 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 which broke my heart because why would I make it? Like, what am I getting out of making it up? I'm in my 20s. Like, girl, what? I'm grown now. They ain't like she going to jail. So anyway, my mom didn't believe me, but she came to, she said she called my cousin and she wasn't coming. But when she came to my house, my stepdad brought it up at the dinner table. "Well, were you touched or weren't you? Did she play with you or didn't she? Or da da da." And I looked at my mom like, I didn't have this conversation with him. I had it with you. How the fuck does he know my business? Right? So like, I was very upset about the fact that like my trauma was just being spread. And then of course the whole family knew. I started getting phone calls. It was just this whole thing. And everybody just kept calling me a liar. And I think that impacted, and it still really has impacted my relationship with my mother in the sense of, I just didn't feel as though she was trustworthy. I say all that to say is that for me, that art was able to heal me. That me being able to speak that to an audience and talk to people about how when you're your most vulnerable and you come to somebody and they don't believe some of the worst things that happen to you, or they blame you for it, what that can do to you mentally, right? It didn't break me. It just stalled me, if you would say, right? Because 10 years later, I was able to write the play. And my part was super impactful. My mom actually was there. I did break down. She did apologize in front of the audience and say she was sorry. We had about 75, 80 people there. So that was nice. Do I think that she did it just because people could see it? Yeah. Do I feel as though, my cousin eventually ended up admitting that I wasn't lying. She, of course, she denied it at first, but she came around and said, he's not lying. Which made her even then come back and have to say, I'm sorry again. And at that point, it was just like, well, you should have believed me when I told you. Like, I don't want to hear that. And, you know, people say it's your mom, it's your family, whatever. But at the same time, you know, I was a kid. You didn't protect me, and you protected that person. And so I say all that to say is that for me, the art that I put out, it really healed me. And there were also people in the play that one of the people, they talked about being trans and coming out to their family as trans and how hard that was. Like I said, the gay pastor, Derek, he talked about him being revoked from being a part of a church. And they had it in the Post Gazette, like, which is a big paper here. We had another person who talked about being in a relationship and having domestic violence and being abused by their partner. And so that art in itself, I felt healed the community for people who came to see it. And it changed the game. The people are still asking me to do it again. I don't know. It was a lot. But I did enjoy it, and I do think it was impactful, and maybe I will bring it back.
So how do you balance celebration with education and cultural events?
Everything that I do has a cultural lens. I'm always thinking about, I'll give you an example. This weekend, I outreached and did for Juneteenth, right? There were still gay pride flags on the table too. Because I can't separate the fact that I'm Black and gay. I'm both. So I'm going to bring that with me wherever I go. You have to bring you wherever you go. And I can't stress that to people enough, because you are the person you could be the person that's opening up the door for people to be their authentic selves because they see you doing it. And so how I do things is I always put that in my mind. Will I be comfortable at this event? Would this be an event for Terry? Will Terry feel comfortable here? And if I feel like that, then I know everybody else will too.
What is one ballroom moment you'll never forget?
Oh, okay. The first time that I walked in Baltimore and actually won. I'll never forget.
What was that experience like?
Like I said, I've always been an underdog, or at least people tried to make me feel like that. And so when I went to another city, to another place, and they told me that I was celebrated and I was handsome and that I deserved it, it just made me feel good. It made me feel like I belonged, because one of the biggest things about ballroom is you don't join fraternities, you don't join work groups, you don't join ballroom houses. You do join it for the fun of it, but most of the time you join for that sense of belonging.
So how does ballroom empower identity and expression?
Oh my God. A ballroom empowers identity because you can be whatever you want to be when you get there. You can do whatever you know, the categories allow you to take your creativity to the next level. It allows you to expand your mind. And I'm a super creative person, especially when I tap in. It takes me a while to tap in because I always have like 50 things going on. So when I'm actually able to sit and focus and dig and dive into my creativity, I can get lost in it for days. Like, I mean, I'm talking about not answering the phone, not going to work. Like, I could really get lost in it, which sometimes I have to cut that. I have to cut it off because that's my happy place. Like when I'm able to create an event, when I'm able to create a play, when I'm able to write something, when I'm able to really dive into that truly creative zone, that's honestly and truly where I feel the most safe. I tell my partner this all the time, and well, he says it to me all the time, is you always have so many great ideas, but you always have so many. And I tell him, so imagine if you were me and this was your brain and all these ideas are coming to you all the time. Like, it is like, what did I tell my friend? It's like, you ever see, what Peanut? What is Charlie Brown? You know the bubbles that pop up or used to pop up? That's my mind with ideas, especially when it's a creative space or time. They'll just keep coming. They'll be like, boop, 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 boop. And it's hard to like grab onto one. And it's a thing. It's very unique of me. I have these huge, big poster boards that I have probably like 20 to 30 like really good ideas on them. And I'll just add. And then sometimes something will, I know that my idea or my creativity needs to come out if the idea keeps coming back up. If it keeps coming to me, then I have to get it out on paper. I have to do something with it, because I also feel like, and creative people understand this, that's the divine, that's God telling you you need to do something with it. There's something there. You need to get that expression out. And so I listen to it now. When I was younger, I didn't.
So what does the future of Black Pride look like to you?
That we won't need it.
That's interesting. Expound.
I would like for the world to understand that all gay people are not white gay men. That truly, like, and when we're able to tap into the fact that they are not the only experience, that they are not the only people with a little coin, that they are not the only people that like to have a good time, and they're not the only people that deserve to be celebrated and put in spaces and positions to create and to perform and to have access to what they have, then we won't need it. I don't know if we'll ever get to that space in my lifetime, but that's what I would hope, was that an 18-year-old gay boy like Terry could just walk into the room and for these white people to accept his ideas as being just as good as their 40-something-year-old ideas.
Well, I want you to remember this. Our 44th president happened in our lifetime, right? And it wasn't just one term, it was two. So what's to say, and I'm just throwing it out in the atmosphere, what's to say in the next 10 to 15 years that what you're wishing, not wishing, but what you're putting out there cannot come to fruition? Because I can tell you that there's that road is already being paved.
I think that it is being paved. I would say, though, that the people right now that they have in those positions, it's performative. It's not authentic. Yeah. And I think that when you are truly, hear me clearly, because I really want people in the audience to take away with this. When you are truly authentic in who you are and what you are, there's no need to say anything else. Everybody else is going to feel it around you. And here's the thing. People of color, we can instantly feel in the room when people are being fake. We don't got to even say it. It's a feeling that you get. And
instantaneous.
And when it's the discernment, it's that, and when you get that, you don't, with me personally, I don't even attach myself to things anymore that give me that feeling, because I understand that I'm not doing my community a service, I'm doing them a disservice. Because if they see my face on the flyer, they think that it's a room for them to walk through. And in reality, it's not. I'm just a token. I'm just a person that they're like, hey, come on over here. It's not real. And that's what I mean by us not having to do it. When we can walk in a room, in a space where people just affirm you for being Charles King, a Black, amazing Charles King, but your whole and full identity will be respected and loved and rejoiced. That's what this is about. I think that's what Martin Luther King was talking about. I think that's what Malcolm X was talking about. I think that's what Bayard Rustin was talking about. I think that's the bigger conversation that a lot of times queer activists forget to talk about, is the feeling. You know you're doing the work when the work doesn't feel like work, right? So like us being in those spaces, white spaces or this space or that space, it won't feel like that to us. It'll feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's it. And here's the other part. You don't need the accolades. You don't need those positions. You don't need the spotlight to really create an impact change. You just need to be yourself. You need to have a couple good friends that are going to show up to your events and support you. And you need to just make sure that that's creative and it's fun. I can tell you, I've had so many people in the city steal a lot of the ideas and the things that I do. I never get mad. You want to know why? Because What you do with that idea isn't what I did with it. And it's not going to come out the same way that you did it just because you did it the same way you saw me do it. The reason why it was the way that it was is because I did it, because it was my idea. It's not going to be the same thing if you duplicate it because you're not me. And so I think it's just so important that people take the time to understand that when you live in your truth, when you're authentic with yourself, you can do anything. Because everybody is feeling like, oh, wow, this is new. Oh, I had that idea, but I didn't think about doing it like that. And so that in itself, it breeds community. It breeds inspiration. And it gives people a space to be themselves.
So when we talked earlier, I told you that we do Black History 365. When I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and career, you told me August Wilson, James Baldwin, and Elin Harris. Let's start with August Wilson. What about his storytelling speaks to you?
August Wilson's storytelling, and I've seen 3 of his plays. And my favorite one was the story about, I think, it's a Netflix. Denzel Washington played it, and so did Viola.
Offenses.
That story to me is just, it's so impactful because it's just real. We all have somebody in our family that went through those experiences. I could see my grandmother in Viola Davis. Just from the reading of the literature, I saw my aunties, I saw my great aunts, I saw them in that storytelling. And it was just truly rich in Black culture, and steeped in the fact that sometimes you don't get what you want. What did I say to you guys earlier? That wall. Sometimes that wall is going to hit you and there's nothing you can do. Can you imagine Viola Davis raising that kid?
No.
That's a wall. Like that is a wall. You know what I mean? And how do you come back from that? What does that look like for you? How do you manage those trials and tribulations? What makes you you? Because that's what other people or that's what people don't realize, is that it's not the situation that you're in. We all universally experience heartbreak, loss, money issues, job loss, these things. It's what you do with it that makes you you. Like it's how you get up from those challenges, right? Like I've had so many doors slammed in my face, but I always got up. I never stayed down. Never.
Wow.
Never.
So turning to James Baldwin, how has his truth-telling shaped your worldview?
Whew. I once a week just watch some of his clips on YouTube. I just seriously, that is literally leisure time for me. And when I watch him, it makes me be more honest. It makes me feel like I haven't reached my full potential, because what people don't know about James Baldwin is he didn't really become famous until he was in his 40s. He wasn't like, it wasn't like he was this 20-year-old ingenue, writing all these amazing books. It was years of him actually going out of the country and writing over in France and traveling the world, and then coming back and helping with the movement. And it wasn't until, he really started doing that work with Martin and then all of that was where people really started to take him serious. And so I say all that to say is that I've been doing this work for a long time, and I still don't feel as though I get my due. And that's okay, because I know that a lot of the rooms that people sit in this city are because of me. But I also know that eventually, whether I write a book, whether I write an amazing play, whether I do something that is going to impact the world, that when it happens now at this age, I'll have so much more to say. I'll have so much more wisdom to give. If I would have got success like that when I was in my 20s, I don't know what I would have been able to offer the world. As a 39-year-old man now, I could offer you a lot of things because I've been through so much.
Right. Final question. Elin Harris gave voice to Black queer narratives. How did his work impact you personally?
He gave me hope.
Mm.
He gave me hope. I'm getting a little emotional. He gave me hope because at the time when I first read my first book, Invisible Life, I was 16. And I was struggling really, really hard with my sexuality. And I was feeling very alone. I felt like I was by myself. And everybody always laughs when I say this, especially in the queer community, because they're like, well, your dad is gay. But he didn't want me to be gay. So he wasn't somebody that I could talk to until I got much older, right? So I had and then also, just to reiterate back to my dad, I hadn't seen him in relationships. He kept that from me, right? Because it was a different time. So I didn't see two gay Black men living this, thriving this awesome life and, doing these things. I didn't see that. I saw my dad when I seen him, and he gave me a couple dollars and he went on his merry way, and, that was life. But when I read Elin Harris, it changed my life. I don't know how honest I want to be. No, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna be really, truly honest and authentic here. We talked about this a lot, so let me do it now. I was suicidal. I really just didn't feel like there was a space in life that my life had any value, that no one took me serious, like that, like I was nothing. I didn't feel a connection to TV. There was nobody who was Black and queer that looked like me, and I wasn't a drag queen. So RuPaul didn't matter to me because that wasn't my life. You understand what I'm saying? Like I didn't get that. That wasn't somebody that I was looking at as, oh, this is what my life can be. I didn't like women's clothes. So that wasn't a thing that I wanted to do. And I didn't see any, all the Black gay characters that I saw in movies and television, they all did hair and they were extremely flamboyant. I won't say that I'm not flamboyant, but I'm not that flamboyant. I'm just a gay man. And so there's a difference. Again, I didn't see myself in any archetype in media. I didn't see myself in anybody around me. It was me. I was by myself, and I thought that was how my life was going to be, and that was very scary, and it was very lonely. And when I went to the GLC library and I read that book, I bought it. I gave it back to them. I read it in a day and a half, maybe. Didn't go to school. No, I'm serious. I skipped school. I sat in my room and I read that book. And then I went to Barnes and Nobles and I ordered it. And then the Barnes and Nobles lady said, "Oh, he has all these different books," and I bought them all right there and then.
Well, yeah, Invisible Life was hard to put down because you had to keep reading that once you started reading it.
Because those words spoke so deeply to me, my spirit. It told me that I had value, that I could live an authentic life and be happy and have friends and have family and be celebrated. Those pages to me, oh my God, I wish I could find my old one, because the first one I ever bought, the words, I will cry so much in reading it that the words had started to blur. Like the pages were hard. That's how much I read that book. And there were times where I would highlight passages. I would write down stuff. I would say, like, in my head, like, that's not what this character would do. What would this character like? It was so weird for like a year. It just really got me through my adolescence. And sometimes I'll still just go back and read it. Oh, and B-Boy Blues was another good series for me.
Wow. So in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via your social media, your websites, all of those good things.
Oh, awesome. Words of wisdom that I would like to leave. Be yourself. Own it. Don't run away from the work, especially when it gets hard. Keep going. And this is a big one for me. Nothing in life that is worth having is easy, and so you have to make sure that a lot of times for me, when life gets really hard, that means that I know that I'm on my way somewhere. It really is. Something's about to break. And that's why you have to stay the course. You got to stay the course, because that business, that idea that you kept having, that thing that won't leave your mind, that keeps coming up, and you keep thinking about it, pursue it. The reason why I keep giving you, the reason why I keep putting that in your mind, is that's what you're supposed to be doing in life. And Terrance McGeorge on Facebook, Big T128 on Instagram, and reach out. Terrance McGeorge on LinkedIn as well. And if you guys are going through something, or want to collaborate, or want to connect, or just want to talk, please reach out. I'm always an open book. I always will give you my time if I have it to give. That's just what I do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And thank you, Mr. King, for this amazing opportunity to be able to speak. I hope that in this conversation, somebody can take something from this. I really do.
So before I close, when I close the show, if you could stick around for a few minutes, I would appreciate it.
No problem.
For those of you that have stayed with us and watched the show, I want you to know that I appreciate that. And I hope you guys have learned some things from the wisdom and the things that Terrance just talked about that's so important in life, because we just talked about life lessons, and it's a very real thing. And so, sometimes the experience is the experience, but we got to remember there comes that time where we have to learn how to think to move in the right direction and how to make the proper decisions. So for those of you that are watching on all of our channels, including the YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would ask if you would please subscribe to our channels. Please enable all notifications so that every time we do a show, you will be able to get the notifications that the shows are going live, and you just get the opportunity to watch. And you can also go back and watch all of our previous episodes with all of our great guests that have left an enormous amount of knowledge for each and every individual, for every community, to learn what to do, how to do it, and how to build your community. So in closing, I want to say, Terrance, tonight you reminded us that community is not just a place, it is a practice. It is the intentional work of showing up, creating space, and honoring every person's humanity. Your leadership, your advocacy, and your commitment to building inclusive environments reflect the very best of who we are as a people. From Project Silk to Black Pride, from ballroom culture to your everyday engagement with those who need support and affirmation, you're carrying forward a legacy rooted in Baldwin's truth, Wilson's depth, and Harris's courage. Thank you for your voice, your heart, and your unwavering dedication to community. Family, let's continue to build spaces where everyone belongs. This is America in Black and White. I'm Charles King. Good night, and we will see you guys tomorrow night for another great show. You all